Here's a short clip from Bill Maher. I would say in general, I find him to be a bit of a mixed bag. Some of the things he says I disagree with very strongly. Some of the things he says I agree with very strongly. And, some in between. Honestly, I think in a way that makes me respect him because he's clearly not towing any party line. He doesn't follow all the opinions or positions of any sort of stereotypical party or perspective or group of people. This clip is one that, he gets it so right. He hits the nail on the head perfectly. He starts out with something at the beginning that, he points out something that's so comical it could make you laugh. Unfortunately, it's sad and funny at the same time. But he does a great job of also leading into something that's much bigger and really important. So let's have a listen.
Colonizers are intruders who have no history in an area. When the Dutch took over South Africa, they had no history to the land. They just wanted it. But Israel is the Jews' homeland, and Jews have always lived there. The Jews built a temple with a really big wall 7 centuries before Muhammad or Islam ever existed, and you can still go there and touch it. Calling Jews colonizers in Israel is like calling Native Americans colonizers here. It's ridiculous. After World War II, and after the Jews were very nearly wiped out by an actual attempted genocide, they decided it was time for their historic homeland to be an actual country, so that for once they could defend themselves. And the UN, we like them, right? Yeah, they agreed and voted a country for each of the indigenous peoples. One side agreed to that. But the Arabs had a slightly different proposal. They said, how about we keep it all and wipe you out? You're not wrong that oppression is bad, or that Palestinian and many other Muslim populations are oppressed and deserve to be freed. You just have it completely backwards as to who is doing the oppressing. Hamas is a terrorist mafia that took over Gaza. The Revolutionary Guard is a terrorist mafia that took over Iran. ISIS is a terrorist mafia that took over Iraq. The Taliban is a terrorist mafia that took over Afghanistan. These are the oppressors. And when you make it all about Israel, you take the pressure off of them. You enable them.
Yeah, well said. Can't argue with that. And he starts out addressing this idea of colonization. And people have been so deeply gaslit. There are a lot of people who talk about Israel colonizing Palestine, and they mean it, and they mean it genuinely. And the reason is because they have been deeply and thoroughly gaslit over certainly the last year and a half of, mass media, the corporate media, etc. But this has been going on for a long time. Now, yes, the word colonization is a relatively new word in terms of it being the word that's on the tip of everybody's tongue, and everyone's always talking about colonization, etc. But it's not new presenting Israel as colonizers. It's just that we used to, they used to use the word occupation and occupies, and Israel was occupying Palestine, and they're the occupiers. And this narrative that the Jewish people in Israel are occupying a land that doesn't belong to them, and it's the Palestinians' land, and they just came in and occupied, and just about all the corporate media are guilty of this, of gaslighting for years and years and years and years. And so people have just been lied to so explicitly in their face so many times that they just believe it, even though it's so absurd. It makes so little sense. It's literally ridiculous. It's worthy of ridicule. It's completely absurd. And now, so the shift has gone from the word, from occupation to colonization, which is, that's the flavor of the month at the moment for all the pro-Hamas zombies on TikTok. But the suggestion that Jews could possibly be occupying or colonizing the land of Israel is so absurd and ridiculous. It would be laughable if it wasn't so dangerous. So that's number one, is this idea that it's literally an actual joke to refer to Israel as colonizing or occupying Palestinian land. And then the bigger point that he moves into, which is a really, really important one, is that, yeah, like, the Middle East is a messy region. It's always been a messy region, and it's not just Israel. It's not just the land of Israel that's messy. The entire region is messy. Israel is, this tiny little sliver of land in the middle of a huge region that is messy and has long been messy. And there are entities, groups, governments of sorts, etc., that are causing terrible oppression and suffering at a catastrophic level. And anybody with a sane mind and a human and humane heart would love for that oppression and slavery and human suffering that is not technically necessary all to be minimized, to be avoided, to be eliminated. But Israel is not the source of any of it. And painting Israel as the source, I think the primary objective and the primary motivation people have for doing this is to pressure Israel into, stopping to colonize the Palestinians' land and stopping to occupy their land and to just go away, and from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and, the Jews can just whatever. I'm not even going to say what people actually want. So the perhaps primary official or explicit motivation and interest in blaming Israel is to pressure Israel. But another thing that happens that's really important, and it's very important to be aware of, and it's extremely dangerous, or maybe dangerous isn't quite the right word, but if you actually care about the pain and suffering, the unnecessary and avoidable pain and suffering of people all across this region, by focusing on Israel, you are distracting from the actual cause of the problem, and you're stopping the problem from being addressed. If you want people to suffer less, if you want less pain, less suffering, less oppression, focus on the cause of the problem. And by putting it all on Israel, which is not the cause, you're distracting from the actual cause and ensuring that the problem will not be solved. So, if all you want is to feel good about yourself, if people want to feel like they are virtuous because they're following what other people on TikTok did, and they want to say that Israel is a bunch of colonizers and they're colonizing the Palestinian land and it makes them feel good about themselves because they're so virtuous, go right ahead. If you're interested in actually solving a problem and making life better for some people, as opposed to just wanting views on TikTok and wanting to feel good about yourself, if you actually want to help the people who are suffering, pay attention to what's actually happening, what are the actual causes, and put your effort into addressing the actual causes rather than drawing attention away from the actual causes. Simple, really. If they care.